Welcome to another Haslem episode. Today we are in Wessex, which used to be known as the Kingdom of the West Saxons. More precisely, in Sherborne, a former capital of Wessex. A market town surrounded by green valleys and wooden hills. And the reason why we're here, it is to visit one of the oldest abbeys in England. One that is famous for how heavy its bells are, some of the heaviest bells in the world, and also for being the resting place for two Anglo-Saxon kings, brothers of Alfred the Great. That being said, in this episode, we'll explore Sherborne Abbey. Just over 10,000 people. That's how many souls live in Sherborne. As you can tell, this is not a big place at all. And because it has a lot of narrow streets, it has two castles, antique shops, and it is built with this honey brown bricks, very distinctive. It makes you feel like you are in a very old but well written English story. I've always liked these places that makes you feel like home the moment you step in, the moment you arrive. During the Roman times, this place was part of the Roman Britain, of course. Although back then this was only a small settlement. With other words, the Romans didn't build much here, but they appreciated this place for what it is. A very nice place to live in this valley called Yeo Valley, and of course crossed by the River Yeo. So how do we know that the Romans only built some villas here? Where there have been found some pavements or mosaics from that time that depicted a very famous myth, Greek myth. That one of Marsyas and Apollo, or should I say Apollo and Marsyas. Apollo being an Olympian god, and Marsyas, just like me, a mortal. And this myth also has its adaptation in the Roman culture, but also because in this area there have been found tools, pottery, and I believe 40 years ago they have been found some coins, a huge hoard full of coins that apparently dates back from the 4th century, and it was so massive that it contained 22,000 Roman coins. As you can imagine, huge number for that time, even for that time actually. So this is why this place, although it wasn't part of the Roman map in terms of their biggest cities here in Roman Britain, it still has some Roman traces from that period. It was during the Anglo-Saxon times this town got its name, or at least that's what's written in the Domesday Book, the famous book written in 1086 by a team of royals that belonged to William the Conqueror's kingdom. So the Anglo-Saxons named it Sirburna, Sirburna, or something like that, which means clear path or bright path, referring of course to the River Yeo, the famous river from this area, which I believe it's right there. I'm not sure if you can see it, but you should be able to see it from here. That must be River Yeo. Guys, look what I found here. A telephone booth that's very similar, maybe identical with the ones from London. The very famous one. Red. Nice, huh? I'm not sure if it's still working. Oh, actually there is no phone inside. Yeah, there is no phone inside, but it's nice to see something like this so far away from London actually. It is said that Alhelm was a poet and a churchman, known also as the first Englishman who mastered classical Latin literature, became Bishop of Sherborne in 705. There is also a quote, a very famous quote, very famous Latin quote: Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Which I believe, for those of you interested to go further to explore this topic, I believe describes the best his life and what he did before becoming Saint Alhelm, because you know, initially, yeah, he was just Alhelm, but due to all the things that he did in his life, he eventually became Saint Alhelm. And also this quote describes him the best, in my opinion, in his favorite language, so another plus, I would say. During his lifetime, he established several churches and monasteries. We're talking about a very early Anglo-Saxon period, 6th century, 7th century. But once the town became a religious center, it started to grow into something more important than what it was until that point. As you can imagine, the kingdom of West Sussex or Wessex was ruled by kings. And two of these kings, it is said, that are buried here in Sherborne Abbey. The first one was Athelbald, and he was buried here in 860, and his brother actually followed him on the throne, and he was buried here in 865, Athelbert. So Athelbald and Athelbert, and both of them were brothers of Alfred the Great. The history of Sherborne Abbey starts in 705, but it is said that on this place a Celtic Christian monastery existed here since 658, although that was before this whole place was taken by the kingdom of West Sussex. I believe it was called Landproby. But in 705, King Ine, another king of Wessex, officially approves the construction of Sherborne Abbey. And if you watched the previous video on this channel, when we visited Carisbrooke Castle, King Ine, during his reign, he also took control of Isle of Wight. So in 705, he approves the construction of the abbey, the Sherborne Abbey, and appoints Alhelm as the first bishop of West Saxons. And Alhelm was bishop from 705 up until his death in 709. Initially, this was a Saxon Catholic cathedral from 705 up until 1075, but it was also a Benedictine abbey or a monastery from 998 up until 1539. Because, as some of you know, at that time, a very important moment in the British history took place, called the dissolution of the monasteries, or some people are calling it the suppression of the monasteries by Henry VIII. So after 1539, this church became a Church of England parish church. Between 1536 and 1540, King Henry VIII, together with probably his most favorite person from all his ministries, Thomas Cromwell, disbanded over 800 religious houses in England and Wales. So basically they took control of their properties, they basically stolen all their possessions, and this also came as a consequence of King Henry VIII being against the so-called papal authority. So in a way or another, once King Henry VIII decided that was it, the Catholic Church in England and Wales suffered tremendously. So, which meant that 800 or over 800, I believe, over 800 religious places that used to be part of the Catholics now were part of the Church of England, starting from 1536 or around that time. Now you might wonder, how can a church, for the lack of a better word, be at the same time a cathedral and an abbey? Well, I'll try to explain as best as I can, although if you want more information, probably I'm not the type of person who can give them to you. So from what I know, in a cathedral there is a bishop, and in an abbey there is an abbot. And it's not that the same person held this role for 70 plus years. Instead, Sherborne Abbey was for I think 77 years a cathedral abbey, because it was the seat of West Sussex bishop, and at the same time it was a house for Benedictine monks. This was from 998 up until 1075. When it comes about the intensified Viking attacks from the 9th century, 10th century or 11th century, actually as a consequence to that, in 1016 Knut or Canute, a Danish prince, becomes king of England. So for a short period of time, actually first he became king of England, and then king of Denmark, and then king of Norway. So for around 20-30 years, Knut held the position as a king, and the whole area was known as the North Sea Kingdom. I'm not sure if you know about this, but it's often forgotten that for like 30 years England, Denmark and Norway were part of the North Sea Kingdom, ruled by the same king called Knut. As you can imagine, Knut had to fight to become the king of England. So roughly 1015, 1016, it is said that he attacked this area, the Sherborne area, and he massively damaged the town and partially damaged the abbey. This is why over the years the abbey had to be rebuilt or remodeled over and over again. In the 10th century, when it was built, it was one of the biggest abbeys in England. Also, the Normans brought stone from Caen, Normandy, in order to build this beautiful abbey. And what's interesting about it is that this abbey doesn't have a spire. You can see usually churches nowadays have a steeple, which is that one, of course, but then there is also a spire that goes very, very high in some cases. And somehow this makes it unique. I'm sure it's not the only church like this, but if you ask me, it's one of the things that make this abbey unique. The stones brought from Caen, and also the fact that it's not like the others. Usually other churches have steeple topped by a spire. This is basically an abbey with a steeple. What I can tell you about it also is that it's 33 meters or 106 feet, so pretty tall for that time. In the 15th century, 1437 to be more precise, a big fire erupted, so it required another renovation, a massive one this time. We're talking about a large scale fan vaulted roof that was added, and we'll see it once we go inside. I can't wait to show it to you. But from what I've seen, it's really impressive. 600 years old, is the oldest of its kind in Britain. Before going in, I just want to check the surroundings for a while. I see there are some graves on this side, and also I noticed some really interesting things that I want to talk to you about. But for the moment, I'm not really sure whose grave is this. Actually, it says there are 3 people mentioned here. Actually, there are more than 3. And I see another one here. Usually in churches and abbeys, cathedrals, you find these graves of different people that meant something for the church or did something either worked here or were part of the bishops. There is another one actually here. This one is a bit different, but of course it also depends how well they keep up with the weather, because I have been here for many years. Remember when we went to Lichfield Cathedral? That cathedral actually was famous for the amount of statues and figures it had, both outside and inside. I see very similar faces here outside. I'm wondering now if the same is inside. You see those ones? It's one there, another one, and so on. There are some on that side. Then there are those statues that take care of the water from the roof. And the big windows, which are classics for this kind of religious places built in that time. And of course the doors. I mean, this one is not that big, like again the one from Lichfield. Remember when we've been there? But it has something something special. Alright, I think it's time to go inside to see exactly how it looks. When I first arrived here, there was an event inside. It took about 1 hour and a half, so I had to wait. This is why I decided to show you the surroundings of Sherborne, which were really nice. But now I can't wait to show you what's inside. Alright guys, so we are inside. It's really impressive. And I feel like there's a lot of history here. And with these places of prayer, you have to take your time, because you need to absorb the vibe it sends you. Like for example, I was told that's the organ, and they also have a repeater on that side. So I had no idea about this, but I was told that whatever is being played at the organ, some people at some point were saying that you couldn't hear very well in the back. So this is why they installed a repeater. So whatever is being played here, which is a massive one if you ask me, that's the organ. We are now in the transepts. The transepts is basically where the cross comes perpendicular the small one to the big one. It says there, here lies John Lord Digby Baron of Sherborne and Earl of Bristol. As usual, I'm creating troubles here. My foot got stuck in one of the chairs. I will tell you more about this later on, because this is connected to the bells. This abbey has massive bells, and there is also a room through which you can action the bells, and by what I've seen, this is one of the ropes to pull the bells, and it goes way up there. I believe that it's right there. So what we can see here, it's a recreation of the abbey from Lego. That's so cool actually, because you can see what I told you. This, the tower. So there were a couple of instances in the past where I wanted to tell you more about a church, but I couldn't find the time to do this, and I also didn't have enough knowledge. But this time I came prepared to explain to you the vault. So as I mentioned to you, this is the transept. We are now in the transept, and as you can see there, so the height is 18 meters, 18 meters tall, and it's wide of 33 meters. So there are 33 meters from there up until this side, and from the end to that side it's 75 meters. So I believe this is like 260, 270 feet, maybe 280 feet. And this vault, fan vaulted roof, it's really impressive. It's Gothic style, in case you're wondering, and it's famous for its ribs. Here is must be the choir. Usually the choir is in the middle, just like in the case of Lichfield, had pretty much the same structure in the middle here. Yeah, this is the choir.
They all have a variation. This is the oldest something driven clock.
So this is a monument that was created by Thomas Mansell. Well, that must be the First Lady Chapel, a chapel that was created obviously for prayer, private prayer, and smaller religious services. It's very beautifully created actually. I think we are lucky because when I entered, somebody came to check the organ. There will be another event today at around 7 o'clock. So, because of that, I think we will be lucky and will hear more from this huge organ that you just saw. I see a skull there. I don't know what's up with it. It says there, this memorial has been placed here by his brother officers in memory of Lieutenant Colonel Pownell Ramsay Phillips, Dorsetshire Regiment. He died in 1932. So as you can see, Second World War, this book records the names of all the ranks of the Dorsetshire Regiment gave their lives in the Second World War. I believe this is the First World War and this is the Second World War. Of course, in churches there are these places that commemorates the memory of those who fallen in previous wars, unfortunately, and it's a nice thing to see in churches, abbeys, and cathedrals, places like this. But even here you can see the vault. If I can point this camera properly to see the ribs of this vault. Very beautiful, actually. So this was the Lady Chapel. And I believe these ones. So I did a lot of research before coming here, and it is said that two Anglo-Saxon kings, as I mentioned to you, are buried here. They were brothers, elder brothers of Alfred the Great. And everywhere I've searched, I couldn't find an exact place except these bones, which in my opinion it's a bit odd to keep them, everybody can come here and see these bones, but it is said that these bones belongs to these kings that I've just mentioned, Ethelbald and Ethelbert. Although I personally can't be sure because there is no writing that suggests this is it. So yeah, I can only tell you the same thing that I searched and I found about these burials, but I would have liked to see something more representative, but maybe it's just me. Actually, that might be the case, right? Because you see what's written here. Unknown 15th century priest. So, in the 15th century, somebody created this statue to commemorate this priest, and now they don't know who is it, I believe, by the looks of it. And maybe that's the same thing there. Maybe. I don't know. This is probably one of the most representative place in this abbey because this is Wickenham Chapel, if I pronounce it correctly. Wickenham, I think it was. Yeah, it's not written here anywhere, but I guess this is Wickenham Chapel, and these are the tombs of Sir John Horsey and his son. The reason why these tombs are here is because Sir John Horsey, after 1939, when this became the Church of England parish church, he bought the church and he sold it, or he gave it, I believe he sold it, to the town's people eventually. So this is why it's commemorated here. So in this chapel there is another tomb of famous person for that time, Sir Thomas Wyatt. He was a poet and a statesman. Is he mentioning here? So he was a poet and a statesman, and he was one of his favorites, one of King Henry VIII favorites. He was an ambassador as well, so he traveled quite intensively, and it is said that he was involved with Anne Boleyn. This is why this situation led to his imprisonment in 1539, I believe, and I think he died 3 or 4 years after that, in 1542. But he was imprisoned in the famous Tower of London. Really impressive, and the build quality is amazing. these are passages from Bible or from a religious book, although I'm not really sure. Must be, I guess. If this is not from the Bible, I apologize. So I just asked to have access to the bell room, but I wasn't allowed, of course. I had to try at least. But what I want to mention to you about this is that this is a peal of 8 bells, and they are some of the most heaviest in the world. 8 tons, so in total 8 tons they weigh. This is why it is a very distinctive bell ring or noise or sound. There is a room somewhere here, I assume, is just my assumption, full of this kind of ropes. As you can see, this rope goes up there. So in this room people gather, maybe 8 or 10 or 12, and they gather and they pull these ropes. And again, the organ. Very beautiful overall, very, very beautiful.
I don't know.
So here we are, guys. We've reached the end of this video. Personally, I came to Sherborne mainly to visit its abbey, but here I found more than that. I got to be amazed by this small market town with narrow streets, with very old buildings built with this honey brown bricks. I also got to meet new people, although I didn't film any interactions. I regret not doing so now, but what can I do? Maybe next time. And overall, I can say that I broadened my horizons when it comes about places of prayer, cathedrals, monasteries, abbeys, and things like that. I hope you enjoyed this video. There is another place that I want to show you very, very briefly. The Sherborne Abbey tea room. It looks very nice if you ask me. Right next to the abbey. Now I can say for sure that I know where I will drink my 5 o'clock tea. That being said, from Sherborne, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.